A mother with a heart full of sadness was sitting by her child's bed, and she was afraid that the angel of death might come to her sick child. The color was gone from the child's face and his small eyes were closed. He hardly spoke, and sometimes he took a deep breath. It was more like a sigh than a mother's breath. Every mother looked at her child with more concern and sorrow and asked God to heal him. Suddenly the door rang. There was a poor old man standing behind the door, who was wearing a thick woolen clothes. The old man really needed those clothes because it was winter and everywhere was covered with snow and ice. Outside the house, the wind blows so fiercely that it cuts the faces of passers-by like glass. The old man was shivering from the cold. The woman's heart burned for the old man, and when the child had fallen asleep, she got up to give the old man hot coffee. The old man sat next to the child's bed and shook his cradle. The mother came and sat next to her child's bed. She looked at her sick child. The mother said, "Do you think this child will survive, or will the merciful Lord take him from me?" The old man, who was none other than Death, shook his head as if he wanted to say both yes and no. The mother lowered her head and tears flowed from her eyes and her cheeks collapsed. Her head was heavy for 3 nights without closing her eyes or sleeping. For a moment, the mother's eyes were closed, her head fell on her chest and she fell asleep, but she woke up very soon, worrying about her child. The weather was getting colder. His body was shivering. He looked around and said, "What happened?" The old man disappeared and had taken the child with him. The old wall clock in the corner of the room rang and its lead pendulum suddenly fell to the floor and stopped working. The poor mother ran out of the house and called her child with loud and heartbreaking screams. Outside the house, a woman in a long black dress was standing in the snow. She said to the mother, "I saw Death enter your house, and then he hurried out of that house. He took your child with him. Death runs faster than the wind, and what he never returns what he takes." The child's mother said, "Just tell me which way you went and show me the way. I will find it anyway." The woman in black said, "I know the way, but I will show it to you only on one condition. You should sing all the songs you used to sing to your child. Sing me one more time. I love those songs. I have heard them before. I am at night and I have seen you cry while singing those songs on your baby's bed." The mother replied, "Very well, I will sing them all for you later. I will sing them. Don't take me, give me the way so that I can go and reach him. I have to take my child back from Death." The night stood still and didn't move. When the mother saw this, she tied her hands together and had to sing. She sang. And she cried, and the more she read, the more tears she shed. Finally, at night, she looked at him and said, "Take the right hand of the dark forest and go. I myself saw that Death went to that side with your child." The mother took the path of the dark forest full of fir trees and left. He went and went and went until he reached a crossroads deep in the forest. He didn't know which way to go. There was a thorn bush without leaves and flowers. The night was very cold and ice crystals were hanging from the branches of the trees. The mother asked from the thorn bush, "Did not Death pass this way with my son?" The thorn bush answered, "Why, but first you have to stick me to your chest and warm me so that I can tell you which way Death went. If you don't do this, I will die of cold and turn into a piece of ice." Mother, to warm the thorn bush like him, he pressed it on his chest, and the thorns pressed against him, and drops of blood came out of them. But the mother's heart, beating with the love of her child, gave so much warmth to the thorn bush that it blossomed and put forth new leaves in the excruciating cold. The thorn bush told the mother which way to go. The mother went and went until she reached a big lake. There was no ship or boat in that lake. A thin layer of ice covered the lake. The depth of the lake was great and the ice could not bear the weight of the mother. But he had to pass that lake. The mother sat down on the ground. She wanted to drink all the water of the lake, but such a thing was impossible. With so much pain, the mother thought that maybe a miracle would happen. The lake said, "No such thing is possible. Instead, it is better to give me your eyes. I have a collection of the best pearls and your eyes are the most beautiful pearls I have ever seen. I will take that. Death sits in it. He grows flowers and trees there, each of which is the life of a human being." Mother said, "I accept it. I am ready to sacrifice everything I have to reach my child." The poor woman cried so much that her eyes filled with tears. They fell into the lake. The eyes went to the bottom of the sea and turned into expensive pearls. He held the mother's lake in his arms and then carried her to the other side of the shore with a wave. There was a big and strange house next to the beach. The mother, who couldn't see anywhere, said loudly, "I'm looking for Death. He took my child with him. Where can I help him find him?" The old woman who took care of the Death greenhouse answered the mother and said that she has not come yet, but tell me, how did you come here? Who made you find here? The mother said, God is merciful and kind, help me, and he was my guide. You should also tell me where my child is. See him, many trees and flowers have withered tonight, Death will soon come and replant them. The old woman continued and said, you have beautiful hairs, if you give them to me, I will tell you what to do. In return, I will give you my white hair, whatever is better than nothing. Mother said, if this satisfies you, I will give you my hair with all my heart and soul. And she gave her beautiful hair to the old woman. They entered the big greenhouse together. In that greenhouse, the flowers and trees were strangely intertwined because the crystal bubbles. There were many plants there. Some of them were lush and tender and some were sick because blue snakes were wrapped around them. Black crabs were squeezing their stems in their claws. There, palm trees, oaks and magnificent plants had grown and flowered. Each tree and each flower had its own name. Each of them was the life of a human being. The life of a man or woman who lives in China and Greenland or in other parts of the world were big trees that they planted in small pots. There was nothing left to suffocate because of the lack of space. In some places, small flowers could be seen, which had grown in the fertile land and were surrounded by moss, and they were very well cared for. The pained mother who had sacrificed everything for her child was bending over the small plants and listening to their heartbeat. She found the special flower of her child's life. The mother shouted, "Oh, I found it, this is my child." And he stretched his hand towards the saffron flower of the patient whose head was bent to the side. "Old woman," he said, "don't touch the flower. But stay there, Death will come soon. Take his hand and don't let him uproot this plant. Threaten him, say that if you uproot this plant, I will also uproot other flowers." He is afraid of this threat, because he is responsible for their lives and no flower should be plucked without God's permission. Suddenly a wind as cold as ice blew in the greenhouse. Even though the mother could not see anywhere or anything, she knew that Death had come. Death asked him, "How did you find the way here? How did you get here earlier than me?" The poor woman answered, "Finally, my mother." Death went to the flower and wanted to cut it. But the mother held the flower in her hands and did not let Death approach it. Death died on the hands of the mother. The breath of Death was much colder than the icy wind. The mother's hands became numb and she fell down. Death said, "You can't do anything anymore." Mother said, "God can." Death said, "I don't do anything except by God's will. I am his gardener. I will take all your flowers and trees to the big garden of heaven that no one has seen and plant them there. But I dare not tell you how the place is there and how these flowers and trees grow there." The mother cried and begged, "Give me back my baby." And suddenly he took the two beautiful flowers that were near him with his hands and shouted, "If you don't give me my child, I will uproot these flowers because I am disappointed in everything." Death said, "Don't touch them. Don't you consider yourself a miserable mother? Do you want to make another mother miserable like you?" Poor woman, did he say that I will make another mother miserable? And Death immediately dropped the flowers. He said, "Come, take your eyes. I took them when I was crossing the sea. These eyes had a dazzling shine. I didn't know they were yours. Come, take them. Now they are brighter than before. Come and look into that well that is near you. I will tell you the names of the flowers that you wanted to plant, and you will see their future in life. Look until you realize that whose life did you want to destroy." The mother looked into the well and saw with great surprise that one of the flowers is a blessing for the world and a world of happiness and joy has blossomed around it. He also saw the fate of another flower, which was full of misery, mourning, apprehension and poverty. Death said that both this happiness and this misfortune is God's will. The mother said, "Which one is the flower of happiness and which one is the flower of bad luck?" Death said, "I can't say this anymore. You just have to know that one of these flowers was the flower of your child's life. You saw the fate of your child and his future." The mother was frightened and shouted, "Tell me to see which of these flowers my child was. Save my child, my innocent child, from misery and poverty. Pick him up and take him to the court. May God be merciful. See my tears and take everything I said and did without seeing or hearing." Death, he said that I didn't understand any of your words. Do you want to take your child or do you want me to take him to a place that you don't know? The mother clasped her hands and knelt down and prayed to God. Lord, if you find my request against your will, which is the highest will, accept it and do not listen to my pleas. The mother fell to the ground and death took the child to the other world.